we're actually going to move on to tomorrow's scene. So these are big spoilers if you don't want to know anything about tomorrow's character. I will say, in terms of spoilers, if you are just worried about getting the story ruined for yourself, I didn't particularly find this very spoilery. I felt like everything that we see in this clip is very much things that you could already assume if you watched any of the regular trailers that had tomorrow in it. So I mean, watch it if you want to watch it. Don't watch it if you really don't want to know anything. I personally don't think it spoils anything. It shows you a little bit of her fighting technique and maybe gives you an idea of what she can do. But other than that, I don't particularly think it is anything to shy away from. It doesn't give you any crazy stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I hope that you will stick around. Here we go. Now, I'm going to break this down pretty heavily. There was a lot of stuff that I thought was really interesting in this. Now, the first thing that I noticed is that we do appear to have Lou on. I think it is actually Lou. I'm pretty sure you can see the Sea Angel keychain. We appear to be in what I think is Australia. I also think this is the first area that we saw in the trailer. We saw F1, and it's the first place that we hook up a Cupid in the trailer. That, to me, is what this area looks like, and I think it's pretty heavily featured in the trailers. I really think they showed us basically, like, the first 3 episodes heavily in the trailer. I think we will beat Tomorrow, Rainy, and everybody by episode 3. I just thought that the robots looked really awesome. You can tell there's a lot going on. We have, of course, the regular guns. It's the same kind of guns that we have seen them use in all the trailers. Other than the fact that just, like, the animation, I mean, they are so HD. It's crazy. And you see them coming out of the tar. So we have basically confirmed that these ghost mechs, they can use the tar currents to travel. I don't exactly know at what point they're able to do that. I'm assuming once we hook up a Cupid, they can travel using the tar currents just like we can. And I actually think that's going to be the reason that Higgs is where Lou is. I think that as soon as a Cupid is hooked up, I think that Higgs and the ghost mechs can travel there. And it's so interesting how he just comes out of the tar. I bet if you hadn't seen this gameplay preview, it's probably still going to scare me in the game. This would make me poop my pants. Just like cutscene where something just comes up from behind you and it's very quick. Obviously, I'm kind of just like slow-moing it, but goodness, I mean, it grabs them so quick. Now, the weird thing about this is, they battle for it, and I thought it was weird that Sam immediately like goes to his knees. And so I don't know if he was just trying to use his weight to get the gun back, or if that's like he slipped, but we can get a little bit more of a sense of what the mech is wearing. So it's got this pouch, which I thought was interesting because, a pouch, I'm assuming that's a grenade pouch or like a utility pouch, but then they have what looks like grenades on their thighs. So I do think that's weird. Maybe it's just for extra grenades, or maybe it's for ammo because they do carry around like these guns, but I don't know. That's just something that I thought was kind of weird about kind of their design. And they're obviously strong. I do think it's funny how their bodies are so massive, and their heads are just like nothing. They're just like the tiniest little LCD screens, or LED screens. Now, what's interesting to me is how aggressive they are. And I don't get why. What reason do they have for coming after Sam? In the first game, the reason that we had things coming after us was just literally because that was what BTs do. They search for the living and try to kill them. We had homo demons that were coming for us because they were terrorists, and we had mules that came for us because they had literal addictions to cargo. But with these guys, I mean, they are robots, so they're being given orders. And my question is, what are the orders? Are the orders simply to kill Sam, to capture Sam? You would think if the orders were to get Lou, to get the pod, which was initially what my idea was, especially if they took Lou the first time, and that's the reason she's like dead and has become like a baby again. That was my initial thought, but it doesn't really track because you think they would be pulling the pod off of his chest, but they're attacking like him in general. So I'm not totally clear on why that is. I'm gonna move this bar down. I'm trying to keep the play button as much out of frame as I can. So this is kind of the first look we get at tomorrow. Again, if you don't want spoilers, this is just kind of showing what her power can do. It's not going to give you any, like, background on her. We see more of that text, which is half the reason I think that APAS is behind everything. I mean, why are these robots created from the same armor and everything as, like, the main tech giant? And they're evil, so if you haven't watched me breaking down the president video, it's worth it. I'm definitely sure he's the bad guy. Now, if you look at the shoulder, you can actually see the decay happening. And obviously, if you've seen this before, you know it's because Tomorrow is touching them. So immediately they are time-falled. And at first you think it's just because she's holding her hand out. But it appears more that she was actually touching this person and it decayed from her touch, which is interesting because later we see that she does almost have like an allergic reaction to these robots when she touches their weapons, which is odd, I thought. But she doesn't seem to have any reactions to touching their like backpack things, which I thought was interesting because that is what she touches in order to like kill them, and we know that Red Samurai also did that. Now here, we broke this down before, and I was half right. I did think Sam was around, but we quickly found out in this trailer that that's just more robots popping up. So let me go ahead and play this clip for you if you haven't seen it yet in its actual entirety. I'm just going to play where you can hear the audio. Okay, so she is so cool. The music almost sounds like Hartman's. It's like it's not a wedding march, I don't think. It's some sort of march though. It gives such spooky vibes, and I love that. I thought that was such a nice touch. So if we go back here, I initially thought that this meant that this was their first meeting, only because he looks surprised to see her. Now, he just kind of looks around like, oh my gosh. To me, this was a surprise face. I totally thought, oh my gosh, this is the first time she's saving him. He doesn't know what to think about her. But I'm actually thinking this might be the first time he's really seen her powers put to use. Or maybe in action, because as we'll see in a minute, she's obviously a part of the group already. What I will say about this is that she took out one ghost mech, which was all that there was that was attacking Sam, and as soon as she took out that one ghost mech, it was like it sent out a distress signal, or it was aware that whoever was sending it was aware that she was there, because they sent reinforcements immediately. So it goes down into the tar, and immediately 3 more pop up, which very much gives like Hydra, Cobra, whatever, like the Greek myth of you cut off one head and more will grow. But also, I just assume that these things are being sent on a mission. Part of my theory is that I think Higgs is possibly facilitating their direction, like where they're going. So possibly these attacks are slowly moving them towards the factory, because I don't think they've been to the factory yet. So my thought was perhaps Higgs is, in a way, creating a path for them and they don't realize it. But I don't know that for sure. So let's continue. So there's so much cool stuff going on in this. Let's go back to where she starts putting her hair up. So I love this. I love that this also tells us a little bit about the scene that we see her with. She has the drawbridge jacket on and she's touching foreheads with Higgs and she looks mad or frustrated. Her hair is up in that clip, which we now know means that she was getting ready to fight or did just fight someone. So that's, an interesting note. Maybe she was getting ready to fight Higgs. I'm not really sure. Or maybe she did fight him already, but her hair is still up in that clip. So she has the tar on her hand. We know just from clips that she's able to control tar. She has this really neat outfit on, which I thought was supposed to represent the same dress that Amelie wears. She was last seen in white. She also had strings or like a ribbon around her waist with two strands coming off of it. And then, of course, she has these, like, really neat, like, skirt shorts on under here, which I love the fact that this is, like, a wearable cosplay. Like, yeah, she looks cool. Yeah, it's kind of like a hero outfit. But at the same time, it makes sense. You can actually wear this. So she kicks off her shoes, which of course everybody loves to laugh about feet and Hideo, but we see at least 4 more ghost mechs pop up in the background. But we also see she has drawbridge on these shoes already. We can see the logo right here. So my thought of her, this being the first time they meet, must be wrong because she does have the drawbridge gear on. So I actually do think this may be the first time Sam has seen her in action, but I don't think it's the first time that they have actually met. So she's actually able to, upon touching, go into the tar current. What I am curious about is initially, we just found out in the Koji 10 podcast that he initially had a different idea for Tomorrow and had a different way that he wanted her to be in the video game, and they actually changed it. So I am curious what it was initially, but they said they changed her to be more of a less popular genre of character. So I don't know if like they were thinking superhero in the beginning because of Marvels and stuff. But he's changed her to more of a dancer, is how he put it. Now, I thought the whole reason that she moved the way she does, and like you'll see in a minute, is that I just assumed it was to mimic like a fish or something, acrobatic in the water. Because that just makes sense. But they said that they modeled her fighting off of dancing, which is interesting because the final fight between Higgs and Sam is played to the music of the final waltz. So that is kind of a fun reference. So we're going to back up. You guys probably noticed this because, I know you guys notice things. But when she goes into the water, I thought this was cool. This reminds me of something, and I'm not totally sure what. So if you recognize this imagery from anything, you should let me know because for some reason this struck me as important and reminiscent of something, but I can't quite put my hand on it. Obviously it's the opposite of a water droplet, but and that makes sense because she's going, in reverse into the tar current. But I swear that this imagery reminded me of something in Death Stranding 1. So if this is familiar to you or you recognize it from somewhere, you should let me know because I feel like it's referencing something. What I love though is if you watch her footsteps, and you can see them kind of coming out of the tar right here, you can see her steps just like a BT. So just like a BT would jump out of the ground or be walking across the ground, like that is just the coolest thing, that you can actually see her kind of popping up on the ground. And then when she does come out, the jumping, I mean, to me that's diving. I really thought they were modeling her after a swimmer. But, apparently not. She's definitely supposed to be modeled after a dancer, is what he says. Now, again, I love that we get their little LED emoji faces. I think that's fun. I hope they do expressions too. As her feet touch, though, her literal skin is what is causing them to deteriorate. And I think this could be really interesting between her and Rainy. Rainy obviously is able to use core fall, so wherever she is when it's raining, within 1.5 meters of her, it reverses time. And whatever Tomorrow touches when she's, using her power, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it powers, when she's using her powers, deteriorates. So do her and Rainy cancel each other out? And is that why they feel like such friends? Because they both kind of know what it's like to be destructive and not mean to be. Now, obviously, I think Tomorrow is meaning to be destructive here. But the whole, just catapulting off of the robots is so interesting. We get another great look at his gun, and I did notice he's got, an attachment over on the side. I do wish I knew more about the Death Stranding 2 guns, but, we'll just do with what we've got. We've definitely got some, I feel like that might be lethal rounds, but it's probably not, because they did say almost everything in the game is non-lethal. So I wonder what we are shooting at these robots that's so effective. And we basically get, some teamwork. He shoots the backpack off, and it immediately disintegrates. So I do think the backpacks are the important parts. Whatever is in those is what is really, guiding these creatures. It's what's keeping them alive. So I am curious, what is in those. And then we see, I love that she just, dive bombs out of the sky. You can see her feet right there. She just hits so hard. I'll see if I can get, the exact frame, and we might be able to, yeah, is that just the craziest thing in the world? So, one of the voice lines that we know about from Hideo's Instagram, he kind of posted, a clip, and you could see the title of the MP3, and it says it's a Higgs voice effort, and he'll say, "Whoa there, cowboy," if you point your gun at Tomorrow. So at some point, we must be fighting alongside them in a way that allows us to aim at NPCs or ally characters. So I wonder, will this introduce us into using Tomorrow in battle? That would be very interesting. And of course, it implies that Higgs will ally with us at some point. This is the part, I'll play it. Watch how she looks at her hands. So to me, that was a look of surprise. She looked like she didn't, I don't know, to me it just seemed like she was surprised. So she melts this gun, which is, a different material than maybe the mechs are. Because she's been touching the rest of the stuff and hasn't had any issues. And then when she looks at her hand, to me it's like an allergy. She has these spots that kind of run up her arm. Now, lots of people have broken this down. Lots of people think that this represents some different things. Some people have said they think it represents the tree of life. Some people think it represents alchemical, kind of mythos. I don't know, probably. I feel like Hideo puts all kinds of stuff into his game, but what I feel like I can actually prove is that it is moving down her veins in a way that an allergy or a toxin moving through your body would. And to me, this reads as like the chiral tears that Sam and Fragile and everyone gets, and they then cry that toxin out. I feel like this is her body rejecting whatever is in these weapons. And the way she looks at it is just like, oh crap, like what in the world? Now I do wonder if we will learn that the reason she was in that pod is maybe because she overworked herself and ended up in like stasis, and that's how we find her. That wouldn't surprise me because in that coffin or pod that she was in, her whole face is covered in gold. Um, just like when a body goes necro in the first game. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's just like what happens when she overdoes it and she has to go into like stasis for a long time. But she does seem concerned about what's happening. So I'm going to go back. When she does this, of course, we all have our thoughts. Who she is. Is she related to anyone? I have 1,000 theories, and I can back up each one of them with different, evidences, and I still don't know what I want. But this phase felt so Higgs coded that I almost double thought every theory I had, because initially I did think it would be kind of fun if Higgs had somehow, had a child. And I was talking with Rossaroni, and, he talks about, he thinks maybe it could be like Fragile's child or something like that. And that would be so cool. The book had a lot of implications that Higgs and Fragile were an item, and that's another reason the betrayal hurts so much. So, I mean, on one hand, I don't want Fragile to have been pregnant off screen. That just seems cheap. But at the same time, that would be a crazy, like, curveball. Because when you look at Ellie Fanning and you look at Lea Seydoux, they look very similar, which I know that Hideo picked Elle Fanning because of how she looks. He talked about if she hadn't said yes, that he would have had to rewrite the whole game. And I think part of it is that she has similar features to like every main character. She kind of looks like Higgs. She kind of looks like Sam. She kind of looks like Fragile. She even kind of looks like Lucy. And so it's kind of fun that there's so many mysteries. And she'll probably be related to no one. You know what I mean? So she slides around, and it's so cool to me. I like that, also the implication of like the way that her dress is. If you notice, let's go back to where she's sliding. So if you look at how the air is propelling her, it's funny because you can see like her squirts, but the tar is actually pushing her forward. So all of the air force is coming from the tar. She's actually going like with the air or the propulsion, which is neat because that means that she is bringing her own energy. So whatever is she's using right now is like kicking her forward. Because normally when you're going forward, all of your clothing, like your dress folds, would be back, like going with the direction you are headed. And the fact that she's going forward, but her dress is also going forward, tells us that she has a ton of air propulsion behind her. So I'm like, is that coming from like the tar currents? Is it almost like sort of a riptide situation? Like she's just being like propelled. So anyway, propulsion is interesting, but I did notice that her dress isn't following the physics that it should. I thought it was kind of interesting when she hits this guy. I mean, she hits him just with kind of one kick, and it blackens immediately. Now, he's also shooting at it, and possibly those rounds are like full of time fall. Who knows? I feel like in this game anything is possible, but it made me curious if just one kick does that. I don't think so, because then you look at the other ones and they're not necessarily that blackened yet. You can kind of see one back there that's like on the ground, unless that's him. No, that's one of them. So she kicks this guy, and she's like so like It's just so cool. Very cool. And it's like, who taught her to fight like this? So she basically uses him like a pole and just slides around him, kicks him using his own energy. And the land and stuff is so neat. She's very like karate. I don't know much about like jujitsu or anything, but like the dancing and the techniques, like I do wonder who taught her. Is this all self taught? Did she just learn this? This is probably the most beautiful shot of the whole clip. The makeup, her eyes, the coloring. This is just the most beautiful part, I think, of the trailer. Now, one of the reasons that I felt like I was surprised that they didn't model her after a fish or that her fighting wasn't based on swimming was this right here. I mean, she's literally, you can see her back come up. She's literally, I'm not sure if you call that like breaststroke or whatever, but I mean, she is swimming. Right there, you get like the best clip of her swimming. And what I thought was interesting is this form of her back looks so much like the whale BTs where they have like the gold spine and skull in them. I thought that was a very familiar imagery. So I was really surprised that they were saying that that wasn't their intention at first. Feet. The other thing is, I don't know if it's any body part can touch them and destroy them, or if her feet obviously have been shown to destroy them, but here she's using her hands in particular to destroy this mech. The next thing that I noticed that happens is so they destroy the first one and like four more appear. They destroy those four, and then we get what I'm calling like the boss robot, which has the swords and is featured on Woodkid's album cover art. Which, wow, it's such a cool design. I love that we're getting just really neat mech gear. I do wonder, are we able to pick those scissors up? Are these swords just a commonplace object? Again, this is very similar to Red Samurai's sword. So why does Red Samurai have the same outfits and the same gear, but, very much seems to be not on Ghost Mech's side? Who is that person? I want to know really badly. We do get the really cool arm gear, and the sword to me is really reminiscent of the knife that Higgs carries. At the end of the game, you see him, he knife fights you a lot. It reminds me a lot of that knife. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is whenever Tomorrow touches this robot, the the mech drops its sword. Now, whether it drops its sword just because it's knocked off balance, I don't know. It seems to drop it very easily. I had a theory that perhaps they're not allowed to hurt Tomorrow. And maybe Tomorrow is the goal, or maybe they've been told they're not allowed to lethally harm any of these people. That would go along with my plot that I think that Higgs is slowly directing them towards his factory because I think he wants to be found. But anyway, watch the swords. Okay, so it's very fast, so I'll just kind of go through it slowly. As soon as she comes out of the ground, which is so neat, you can see her little feet prints. She comes out, she basically like somersaults onto him, and he grabs her around the waist and then immediately drops his sword and like tries to wrangle her, which obviously he can't grab her because she's much more flexible than this robot is. But I just found that weird. Why would it let go of the sword? Like, wouldn't it just be easier to just slice her? You know, like gut her right there? So that's why I'm like, I'm not sure that these robots are allowed to do anything lethal. We also see that she struggles with this ghost mech. She actually has to take it completely under the tar current. So let's watch that part. And I just want to remind you that whenever Fragile got a little bit of tar from Tomorrow's arm onto her hand, it deteriorated both the glove and aged her hand. So we know that to be taken down into the tar, I can assume that that is extremely destructive. So when she takes this mech down, it must be like the last ditch effort. She has to take it down underneath the currents. But that doesn't mean it's dead, because I don't see why it would be on the Woodkid album cover if it wasn't semi-important. I had a theory that this mech represented Higgs and Red Samurai represented Sam. Not totally sure on that anymore, but it seems like this mech, or this type of mech, is too important to just be done away with so quickly if it's going to be on the album cover of the Death Stranding art. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. And she's struggling. You can tell, like, this is hard. She's taking it under the tar. Then we start seeing it immediately starts raining when she takes this thing under. And this is the infamous scene where everyone thought she was loading into the game. And can we just say, absolutely beautiful. The most beautiful part of this whole freaking clip. I mean, she's just so pretty. So, what I thought was interesting is his hood immediately goes up because, yes, you can see like the tar because she's probably kind of bridged the timefall a little bit. But the other thing is, that is a correctly placed rainbow. So what does that mean for what's going on right now? Because we know upside down rainbows represent timefall, but we're seeing a correctly placed rainbow over her head after she has entered and then come back out of the tar current. There is black tar coming up out of the ground, and we actually see that Sam's hood comes up right here. I think you can see that his hood is up now. So this is timefall that she's standing in, I would assume, because his hood has reacted to it and everything. It's possible that maybe it's not, and it's just, misleading or whatever. But if it is timefall, and I assume it is, don't know though, then she seems to be immune to it, much like Rainy seems to be immune to the rain. The thing is, she doesn't look happy. She looks kind of sad at first. But I don't, here she looks happy, and then she just looks kind of sad. Thank you. Can I just say, we're having like such a wonderful moment, and Dollman looks so stupid. Every time I see him, I'm like, he's gonna ruin all my captures because he looks so silly. So that's basically the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll break down Neil's scene tomorrow, and then basically the game is here. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!